It's a great time of year to be a Husky sports fan. Seasons have just begun and others are in full swing. We're here to recap all of last weekend's action.
A lot of teams hit the road, but men's and women's basketball stayed home and took on their rivals Minnesota Duluth.
Husky Mag starts right now. Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Husky Mag. I'm Joey Erickson, and alongside of me is my boy Trevor Bonnickson. How you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good, Joey, and no one else I'd rather make my debut with.
Alrighty, let's talk some sports, shall we? We're going to get into men's hockey. Well, the men's hockey team had a nice break in their schedule to enjoy Thanksgiving, but they returned to action on the road to face off against the Miami Redhawks. The Huskies came into this one undefeated in NCHC play so far this year, sweeping both Colorado College and Denver. Miami has also done a good job this year of generating points under some stiff competition. Both teams came out blazing in the first period as they combined for 6 goals. Less than a minute and a half in, a familiar face for SCSU, Robbie Jackson went coast to coast, dangles the defender, and finds the back of the net to give the Huskies an early 1-0 lead. But the lead soon vanished. 9 seconds later, Scott Corbett tied the game for the Redhawks off assists from Gordy Green and Josh Melnick. Then Bray Crowder went to the box for Miami and gave the #1 power play in the nation a chance to strike. It definitely did not disappoint as Ryan Paling fed Robbie Jackson the slot and shot a sizzling wrister in the top corner to give SCSU the lead again. It was looking good for the Cardinal and Black when they were put on another power play, but Miami's Monty Graham struck on a shorthanded goal and it was all knotted up once again. Not to worry though, the Huskies' power play would get their revenge as Patrick Newell had a nice backhand pass through 2 Miami defenders, found the star freshman Sam Hinches, who had no problem finding twine early in his career, to put the Huskies up 3-2. Late in the first period, Clark Bachman for the Redhawks scored his team-leading 7th goal of the season to send both teams into the second frame, tied at 3. After a thrilling period to start the game, most of the second was a stalemate until point leader Patrick Newell came down the left wing side and with some absolutely silky mitts, toe drags around run defender, gets it to his backhand, deposits his 9th of the season to send SCSU into the final period with the lead. As the Redhawks did throughout the game, they were able to tie the game once again off the stick of Casey Gilling from a tough angle, but it was able to get it past goaltender Jeff Smith, forcing the game into official tie 4-4. But it left the teams fighting for an extra point to hold their spots in the NCHC rankings. No team was able to win the game in the 3-on-3 overtime, but Blake Lizotte executed in the shootout to get SCSU that much needed extra point. And now we're going to head over into the Saturday's game, and it was in full effect as one team was trying to find the edge over the other. Blake Lizotte, the hero the previous night for the Huskies, scored on the dangerous Husky power play with assists from Easton Brodzinski and Ryan Paling to send SCSU into the locker room up 1-0 after the first. As the second period got into motion, Husky defender John Lizotte was given a 5-minute major for boarding and a game misconduct, so they had to play without a very reliable defender for the rest of the game. This gave the Redhawks a much-needed momentum boost as they went on the man advantage. Not long after that, Casey Gillian capitalized for Miami and tied the game at 1. Neither team would surrender a goal for the rest of the period. As soon as the puck was dropped in the third, the Huskies went right to work and did what they did best and get pucks to the front of the net. There was a scramble in front for a loose puck, and Brodzinski was able to sniff it out and put the Huskies back on top after his 7th goal of the season. Spencer Meyer and Patrick Newell also got assists on the goal. Miami would not go down without a fight though. Scott Corbett got his 2nd goal of the series, and it was a big one that put the Redhawks back even and eventually forced the game into another overtime. Same situation, but different result for the Huskies. In this one, the Redhawks scored a controversial goal that ended up being reviewed because of the possibility of being an offsides. Nonetheless, Miami was rewarded the goal and captured the extra NCHC point. Well, after ties this weekend, the men's hockey team finds themselves out of the top spot, and the University of Massachusetts slides in at #1 for the first time in school history. St. Cloud State comes in at #2, and behind them is Minnesota State. The UMD Bulldogs, after a split with North Dakota, comes in at #4. Then Notre Dame rounds out the top 5. Other NCHC opponents include the young Denver team at #6 with an overall record of 7-3-2, North Dakota at 14, and the previous Huskies matchup, Miami at 17. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the NCHC standings. Even though St. Cloud State fell out of the top spot in the USCHO poll, they did not, however, in the NCHC standings. After picking up some big points on the road in Miami, the Huskies still hold the #1 spot with 15 points. Minnesota, Duluth, and Miami are right behind them with 12 points each. Denver and Western Michigan are both 500 in NCHC play, with overall records of 3-3 are in the middle of the pack. Omaha, Colorado College, and a very surprising North Dakota team round out the bottom 3 in this very competitive conference. After a very hot-fought series against Miami, they have no time to look back as the Huskies are back in town and ready to face another NCHC opponent this upcoming weekend. The University of Nebraska-Omaha is coming to town to take on the #2 St. Cloud State Huskies at the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center. Omaha comes in towards the bottom of the NCHC standings with 8 points. It will be another great weekend of hockey, and don't miss it because both games will be broadcasted on Fox Sports North.
Well, Joey, obviously St. Cloud did fall from the 1 to the 2 in the poll. So do you think they'll get back up to #1 sometime this season?
I think they definitely will. I mean, obviously they're playing really good hockey right now. They're playing really well defensively in the Miami series. They just sometimes you got to be a little stronger on your sticks, a little more careful on not taking bad penalties and getting the other team on the power play because they capitalize a lot. And I think once they do that, they will definitely play better, especially this week and coming up against not a so great Nebraska-Omaha team. And I think they will definitely find themselves back in the #1 position after this weekend.
Well, that's great to hear. Well, we will now move from men's to women's hockey as the women's hit the road as well to take on Bemidji State for the weekend. Friday's action would be a much different story than 10 days before when the Huskies played the Beavers, as the Beavers would strike first about midway through the first period off the stick of Haley Mack. In the second period, it was very defensive until the very last minute when Haley Mack would score another goal off assists by Lydia Passault and Claire DeGeorge to put the Beavers up 2-0 going into the third. But that would not be the last of Haley Mack, as she would complete her hat trick late in the third period on a power play. The Huskies would go on to fall in the first game 3-0 as the Huskies goalie Janine Alder would finish with a save percentage of 93%, saving 40 of 43 shots. Haley Mack would clearly lead the way for the Beavers as she scored 3 goals. The ladies would get a chance to redeem themselves the next night, but the offense continued to struggle for the Huskies. The Beavers would score within the first 3 minutes in the first period as the goal came off the stick of Ellie Moser. It would be a great defensive close game after that, as neither team could find the net in the second and most of the third until none other than Haley Mack would score her 4th goal of the weekend off the pass of Emily Berglund. In the final minute of the game, the Beavers would sweep the weekend as they won 2-0. Hannah Patrikis and Haley Theodosopoulos would lead the Huskies in Game 2 in shots with 5. After the 2 losses on the weekend, the Huskies would fall to 5-13-1 on the season. And now we will take a look at the WCHA standings. The Minnesota Gophers are at the top, Ohio State #2, Wisconsin Badgers #3, Bemidji State in 4th, and there's a tie for 5th, the UMD Bulldogs and MSU Mankato, and unfortunately St. Cloud State is at the bottom. The Huskies will look to get back on track and pull off an upset next weekend as they travel to Wisconsin to take on the Badgers. The first of the 2 games will be played on Friday, December 7th at 3:07 p.m., and the second game will be played on Saturday, December 8th at 2:07 p.m. Stay tuned because after the break, we will recap how the men's and women's basketball team fared against the rivals Minnesota Duluth.
Also, we have Leif Ender come into studio and talk some women's basketball. Husky Mag returns after this.
The men's basketball team tipped off their first NSIC conference game this past weekend as they hosted the UMD Bulldogs. The Huskies would get off to a slow start as just past the halfway point, the Huskies found themselves down by a staggering 15 points. The Bulldogs would then get into foul trouble, which helped the Huskies get back into the game, and the Huskies would only trail the Bulldogs by 6 points. As we went into the second half, the Huskies and Bulldogs would not give up an inch as the gap between the two teams stayed between 5 to 10 points the majority of the second half. Both teams got into bonus very early into the second half, which made for a lot of attempts from the free throw line for both teams. The Bulldogs would maintain their lead throughout the rest of the game with big plays from Brandon Meyer, who finished with 31 points and 15 rebounds as they went on to win 91-81. Despite the loss, Gage Davis had a great game, putting up 25 points with 5 threes and 9 rebounds. Sean Smith also stood out as he finished with 17 points and 6 rebounds. Up next for the Huskies, they will hit the road to take on UMary Marauders for their second NSIC game of the season. This game will be on Friday, December 7th at 7:30 p.m.
Now as we switch over and we talk about the women's basketball team, they return to the hardwood of Hollenbeck Hall, looking to extend their win streak to 3 games by defeating the Bulldogs as well. The Huskies did a good job of spreading the ball around in the first half, getting everyone involved, but were led by Mackenzie Uter and Brenna Evans, who both went 2 for 2 for the field and 1 for 1 beyond the arc to lead the Huskies in scoring for SCSU with 5 points. UMD's Brooke Olson came out and finished the half with 8 points of 3 of 4 shooting, giving the Bulldogs the lead at the half 27-19. In the second half, St. Cloud was looking for a thrilling comeback in front of their home crowd, but fell short 53-42. The game was really decided in the paint. Even though the Huskies outshot UMD from the three-point line, UMD was able to control the boards and outscore the Huskies in the paint 28-20. Even with this loss, they still hold a winning record, 3-2 overall. Now we're going to welcome inside the studio Leif Ender to talk some women's basketball, and obviously you were at the game on Saturday night. How would you assess the team's play?
I mean, it was the first conference play. It's the start of the second season, is what I call it. You got the exhibition games kind of early, other Division II teams, but now you're getting the brunt of it because this is the NSIC play. I mean, not the start that they would want to. Obviously, it was a tough matchup. I mean, Kozlowski has been really well with this team, the top dog for her, and then Simonette came out, and, you know, Grove played really well. I mean, defensively, they started off really well, but they were slowly kind of not the offensive pace that they wanted to. They couldn't hit shots either. That was another struggle. Their perimeter shooting has not been lights out like they have been before. They're usually a team that can shoot upper 30%, and they shot under 20% during that game. So that was a little bit of a rough stretch. And, you know, they kind of outplayed them at some points that they wanted it more for their first year. And, you know, obviously it's going to be a good learning lesson. It is the first game of the season, so you can't worry about the first loss. But it will be a fun matchup to go later on when they go up to Duluth. But I think for a learning message, it's welcome this NSIC play, get that first game underneath your belt, and you got to come ready regardless of record, ranked, opponent, who you got on the floor. Everyone's going to come 100%. You got to be ready at all times.
All right. Speaking of the NSIC, well, where do you see this team falling, even though after a pretty tough loss to Duluth, but where do you see them falling in the rankings there?
If they play their best in what they are capable of doing, playing Husky basketball, I feel like they could be arguably one of the top 3 teams in the NSIC. I mean, last year they were in the top 5. They finished 6th, I believe, last year. But offensively, they've gotten a lot. 3 of the freshmen that started off last year, they've got a year under their belt, other senior leadership that has shown well. And honestly, if they, like I said, they play their game, I feel like they could be in the mix of running in the NSIC North.
Alrighty, and who do you think which players do you think are going to stand out and really become better leaders for this team going on through the season?
There's quite a bit of players I can go to. Mackenzie Uter has been that senior dominant role. She's not really putting up the stats, so to say, every game, but you know the energy and the effort is there. I've even talked to Coach Fish, and she's the player that will go 100%. She will call players out at practice if they're not giving their best, and she will go at them. There's no off minutes for her, and she has been that senior leadership role. I know last year they graduated Andrea Thomas, which was their starting point guard, and that was one of the questions coming in this year, and she has gladly, I think, secured that role as a senior, stepping up big. She has assisted well in the offense. She has let it flow really well. She's getting the women where they need to be in their spots. She's been really aggressive at defense. Tenacious is one word to describe her on the defense. She is a bulldog down there. She will get it in your face, tip away, get steals. So that's one player going. And then Doucette is another woman I see coming off the bench, where even last year she was a starter in the first half of the season, but then they kind of switched with Tori Warts, another player I'll talk to a little bit about coming off the bench. And you know what? She took that role as a redshirt junior last year into the senior year, where she understands that, you know what, if this helps my team win coming off the bench, that's what she's done really well. And she took that role really well. Her coaches have praised her for her leadership of understanding and recognizing that change. And that hasn't gone off. I think that's even elevated her game. Coming off the bench, I can arguably say if there's an award for 6 women off the bench, I could be make her claim right there to be number one. She's been that spark plug. I mean, against Valley City, she made a dagger of a 3 to tie it up with 10 seconds left in that game. And then even in overtime, she took over, made a 6-0 run. She can hit it from anywhere on the perimeter, and she's that spark plug that can get going on the offense. And it's really fun to see her, especially coming off the bench. And like I said, Tori Wartz, an outstanding freshman, not even 4 games in her first year at St. Cloud State, already made the starting position. She has been deadly on the perimeter shooting. Now, I like to see her shoot a little bit more as the second half of the game goes, but she has elevated her game. During the offseason, Coach Fish even told me that she even worked twice as hard to improve her ball handling skills and even her mid-range shot and even more aggressive attacking, which is really something that I'd like to see her because she can be a double threat, especially on the offensive side. Defensive side, she's like almost a Mackenzie Uter 2.0. She gets right in their face. Great footwork on the defensive side, sliding into positions, making good steals. And, you know, it's really fun to see her how she'll elevate for her offensive side with a more dribbling attack, because I saw that late in the second half and her freshman year. I just like, who is this kind of player? I love to see more of that. And, you know, it's going to be interesting to see. And then I know 2 other freshmen I got to talk about. I mean, Katrina Tice has been a good solid 4, I think, for this team that they've been kind of lacking because it's been more guard orientated on the offense. But Coach Fish even told me that she thinks that her level of play is a little bit accelerated than what she thought. I mean, she comes off the bench really well, great on the defensive side, is not afraid to go through contact, both offense and defense. And it's shown in the first couple games, and she's been really good. I've been impressed with her footwork, and even inside the post interior, whether it's on the left side or on the right side of the block, she'll do well. And then Brenna Evans, another freshman from De Pere, Wisconsin, has done really well. Very good at the speed side and has shown range as well, like Tori Wartz from the perimeter. She can step back to a little crossover move. Was even compared to Betsy McDonald, the throwback player, for her personality, even athleticism from her. And it's really interesting to see how she will do. I know she needs to adjust a little bit on the defensive side, though, but I know that she has the talent, and I think she'll be pushed by her players to work hard. So those are some of the players that have really stood out to me that'll help this team kind of elevate and hopefully reach their goal and kind of getting deep in the playoffs, or even make the playoffs this year.
All right, well, that's great to hear. You heard it from Leif himself. Thank you for coming inside the studio.
No problem. Always love to talk basketball.
All right. Now the women's basketball team will travel on the road this weekend to get more taste of NSIC play. On Friday, they will take on U of Mary at 5:30, and then on Saturday, they'll be in Minot, North Dakota, and get set to take on Minot State. Tip-off for that one will be at 3:30. After this, we will let you know how the wrestling team and swim team did on the road.
Don't click off yet, because Husky Mag continues next. The number 1 wrestling team were back in action this past weekend at SMSU as they dominated on the mat this past weekend. In the 125 weight class, Brandon Briggs wins by a 7-3 decision. In the 133 weight class, Garrett Voss wins by a 6-0 decision. In the 141 weight class, Travis Swanson took the win by forfeit. In the 149 weight class, James Plesky wins by pin. In the 157 weight class, Tanner Tremblay loses by a 5-3 decision. In the 165 weight class, Devin Fitzpatrick won by a 16-5 major. In the 174 weight class, Colton Eschens wins by a 7-0 decision. In the 184 weight class, Riley Vanek wins by a pin. In the 197, Vince Dietz wins by a 12-0 major. And lastly, the 285 weight class, Brady Ragstad loses in 5-3 decision. After the domination at SMSU, the Huskies traveled even farther to South Carolina for the Newberry Duels. The Huskies dominated against every team at the competition. The Huskies opened up their action against Queen's University of Charlotte by a score of 47-6. After them, the Huskies took on Limestone College as they shut them out 49-0. SCSU would then take on the hosts of the duels, Newberry College, and win by a score of 44-3. Their final taste of action in South Carolina was against West Colorado University, as they would win again 33-9 to complete the sweep at the duels. Up next, the SCSU wrestling squad takes on Minot State in another NSIC matchup on Wednesday. The meet starts at 7 p.m. at Hollenbeck Hall against the Beavers, who are 0-1 on the season so far after losing to U Mary 31-12. And on Wednesday, it is military night as well, so be sure to stop on down to Hollenbeck Hall for more great wrestling action.
Alrighty, Trevor. Now let's head over to the pool and let's find out how the women's and men's swim and dive teams did at the Rochester Invitational. The women's team had a very successful weekend as they placed second in the 12-team field with 1,799 points overall. Some of the top performers include Chelsea Gerke in first place with a time of 51.77 seconds in the 100-meter freestyle, and Annie Hart came in at second in the 200-meter backstroke with a time of 2 minutes and 3 seconds. In the women's 3-meter dive event, SCSU claimed all 3 top spots as Britton Thompson was in first place with a score of 461.25, and her teammate followed her in second, Alyssa Dougherty, with a score of 431 to 1.15, and Mindy Brinkman in third at 405.55. Also, the women's 400 free relay team of Jennifer Thompson, Gerke, as I mentioned before, Christina Ware, and Alexis Burrows finished with a top time of 3 minutes and 28 seconds. Now, as we take over to the men's team, they had a fantastic weekend as well, as they were able to claim the top spot in Rochester with a total of 2,097 points. In the men's 100 free, the Huskies had a pair of teammates in the top 3 as Joel Huff placed second at 46.41 seconds and Brady Wolkow placed third with a time of 47.21. In the 200 backstroke, SCSU had the same idea as William Wynn and Connor Dietrich placed second and third. The 1-meter diving saw Scott Stellick in first place with a score of 454.40 for the Huskies, and to round out the weekend, the 400 free relay team placed second with a time of 3 minutes and 5 seconds, which included Brady Wolkow, Anthony Schwartz, Joel Huff, and William Wynn. After a great weekend for both swim and dive teams, we now take a look ahead in their schedules. They will have a little more than a month or so to rest and perfect their techniques in order to face the University of Wisconsin lacrosse. Make sure to go out and support your fellow Huskies as they will take on the Eagles at the Hallenbeck Hall Aquatic Center on January 11th. Stay tuned for the finale of Husky Mag as we'll be revealing this week's Leader of the Pack.
And also last week's top plays in Blizzard's Best. Husky Mag wraps up after this.
Be sure to follow our Twitter page at HuskyMag_UTVS for the latest and breaking news for Husky sports and in-game updates, along with so much more.
This week's Leader of the Pack is Gage Davis. Gage has scored a season-high 28 points in a game. He has 145 points this season, averaging 20.7 points per game. He has also racked up 41 defensive rebounds and 16 offensive rebounds. This week, Gage led the team with 25 points against Minnesota Duluth, this week racking up 9 rebounds. Congratulations to Gage Davis, this week's Leader of the Pack.
Alrighty, Trevor, now let's go look at last weekend's top plays and this week's edition of Blizzard's Best. As we look at number 3, we see Patrick Newell get past one defender, gets past another with a toe drag, gets it over to his backhand, and puts it in the back of the net. What a pretty goal that was. We're going to have to take a look at this one again. Look at this, toe drags. That was absolutely dirty. Draw a bath, draw a shower as he finds the back of the net for that one. And now we're going to head into the hardwood for the second play of the week. You have the Huskies on the fast break, gets it over to Sean Smith. Sean Smith throws it up to Gage Davis, and he slams it home on the alley-oop. Look at this pretty play. Great pass. Gage Davis goes up and gets it. It's so nice. I think we're going to take a look at it again, Trevor.
Oh, might as well.
Look at this. And this is not the only points he has. As Trevor mentioned before, he finished with 28 points and also collected a total of 9 rebounds. Almost got that double-double there.
And 5 threes as well.
That's, of course. Now let's take a look at the number 1 top play. It's going to be hard to top that one, but Mackenzie Uter coming in, throws up a prayer and banks it off the glass in for the three-pointer to end the first quarter of the game. Hopefully she called bank on that one because otherwise her teammates are going to give her some after that, but that was great.
Of course.
What a great edition of this week's Blizzard's Best.
Well, Joey, this wraps up another edition of Husky Mag.
Yes, it does. Did you enjoy your first time on, Trevor?
Oh, I did, Joey. I mean, doing it with the best. How can I not?
And we'd also like to give a shout out to everyone in the control room. We got Sam Getzinger doing director, Nick Speliopoulos killing it on the video. You got Jack Binnick on his first time doing TD. Ryan from Nebraska is in the studio doing audio. Our lovely producers, Parker Kaiser and Bethany Barrios. Thank you so much. And would you like to give a shout out? Or would you like to end the show?
Can I wrap the show up? Yeah.
Go ahead, man.
Well, make sure to join us same time, same place next week here on UTVS. Stay classy, Husky fans.